potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and today on the show, I'm so excited to have James Nowlin. You should check out his book called The Purposeful Millionaire. Of course, you guys are going to need to pick that up. And he's also owns a consulting group called EGP. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Jaime.
I love talking to executive coaches because you understand sort of the higher end sort of corporate world versus the online business owner, like small business type of world, because there's some incongruencies here, especially when it comes to employees and culture and what they know versus what small business owners are catching up to. So I want to chat a little bit more about culture, because I know you're sort of a realignment person in culture. What do you do in regards to that?
So with respect to culture, there's culture in any organization, even if it's a solo organization, if you're a solopreneur. I work generally with larger clients, universities and colleges and corporations, but occasionally with smaller organizations and nonprofits. With respect to culture, it's something that you got to get right or you get it wrong. And if you don't get it right, you're going to have a revolving door or you're going to have reputation issues. So it's important to not only step back and reflect and ask yourself the question, what is our culture in this place? What do people say about us? How do people feel about us in the workplace? And how do we identify, attract, and retain people based upon our culture? And as you do that, you can create the kind of culture where you can say, this is the kind of place where I want to work, or I'm proud of what we've created here. And your organization really turns into a magnet based upon that energy, that vibe that you've created in your organization.
Which I love, and all the business owners listening are going, yes, I need that. How the heck do I get it? Because a lot of the times you'll start to hire, especially in the first 5, 10, and be like, oh, we've got a great culture. And then it starts to get a little bit wishy-washy as you go a little bit broader because they don't have sort of the visibility as they grow. And maybe they don't know how. So can you give me a couple of steps in somebody like maybe with 20 employees that can sort of recalibrate their culture when they're realizing it might be a little off?
Well, when you're scaling, the culture of accountability has to increase. And sometimes the people that you started an organization with are no longer able to evolve to serve the organization for its best and highest good. So those are some of the growing pains that we see with small businesses emerging into the mid-market companies emerging into a larger space where their capacity and responsibility is increasing. It's up to the owner, the CEOs, the C-suite to take a step back and say, hey, what is it we're defining here as our goal, our vision, our qualities and our values with the people who are here, and what are we going to do to keep them or to help them to develop? And if they can't do that, what are we going to do to help them to figure that out so that they can move on to somewhere else? So culture can be a really, really sticky issue where we've got folks who are constantly looking in the hind view mirror saying, oh, I wish we were back, when we were had 10 people here and we constantly had access to the CEO and we were working on things all the time together. Culture shifts and job responsibilities shift. And as the organization gets larger, the CEO often is in a little bit more isolation, and that is a cultural shift and consciousness shift, if you will, for team members as well.
Times a million, and then the owner can feel guilty that they're not giving as much attention, right? So how do we sort of pull that apart and make it okay for the employees knowing that that's sort of coming anyway and not having the owner be guilty about it?
Well, I've been there and done that with my own company. I started my company back in 2007 kind of as a sole shop. It was just me. And then I added on an employee or two. And then we added on more employees. Then we got larger contracts and larger opportunities. And then I realized this place is not going to grow if I'm constantly billing and working in the business instead of on the business. So we've got to facilitate conversations with folks that says, where you say, we're growing. My role is evolving. I'm changing my responsibilities. And as I do so, your roles and responsibilities are going to change too, because you're going to have to pick up some of the slack or some of the things that I used to do, and they're going to be moved over to your plate. So roles can expand, responsibilities can expand. But as you have these teams that have worked longer together, also we have to focus on increasing efficiency. One of the most important things that I did within my business was to hire a chief operating officer. That person keeps the operations flowing and going while I'm out marketing and working with other clients and looking for business development opportunities to expand the firm. And while I'm still practicing my craft and while I'm still billing from time to time, I'm not buried in the minutia or the details of the business. The hard part is for small business owners or for emerging mid-market business owners, the real challenge is, can I afford to do this? And the answer is, you cannot afford to not do it, because if you don't do it, you're eventually going to sink. Because from a sustainability perspective, Jamie, there are only so many hours in the day. And small business owners sometimes get stuck in the mindset that I've got to have my hands on everything. I've got to be working 6 or 7 days a week. I have to say yes to every single contract. As you grow, you've got to be able to step back and say, this is my target customer. This is my ideal client. This is the value that I'm able to bring best to this client. And this is exactly who I'm going after. And those folks over there, those are exactly the folks who I'm not going after. And for me, early on in the business, I would say, yes, 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 we can do it, we can do it, we can do it. Not only was I burning myself out, but I was not able to invest as much into creating the real culture that I wanted to create, or into developing myself as a leader who could trust other people and delegate. And maybe they wouldn't do it the exact same way as me. Sometimes I actually learned that they could do it better than me if I just let go.
The main question, right? Letting go. And not only letting go, but also building the stability and the foundation that entrepreneurs typically, I'm generalizing here, but are like, ooh, let's move fast. Let's go do this. We don't have time for that. That's, extra, corporate stuff. We don't really totally need to go there. Let's just keep moving forward. And unfortunately, if you don't have that stable foundation and they continue to grow and scale, that's when havoc can happen. So what are sort of the telltale signs of potential havoc coming soon, even if people haven't sort of jumped ship or anything like that yet, just so people can sort of self-identify and be like, that might sound like me. Is it burnout? Tell me a little bit more.
Oh, it's got a lot to do with burnout. I'll be totally honest. I've burned out a few times. And the hard part about burnout is that when you burn out, it takes a lot longer to get your mojo back. It's not something where you come back in a week or two. It can sometimes take months, Jamie. So when we're seeing those telltale signs, we're sensing and we're picking up on, people are maybe considering moving on to somewhere else to work, or maybe this client's not exactly satisfied with our work, but they're holding on to us because they haven't shopped the market yet. Those are some of the signs where we just need to reflect on where we're going and how we're going to get there. And also, do we want to stay alive in the process? Quite frankly, I've got people within my network. People within my network of CEOs who built extraordinary companies, but it was at the risk of their health or their marriage or their relationships with friends or family. And I do have a couple who grew massive businesses who are no longer with us today. And I got to experience some of that decline in them while the business was inclining. And so that's to say to everyone, listen for the signs, do something about it, because you get one life to live. And your body is not as tough as you might think it is, and your mind is not as tough as you think it is. Take time to step back, to reflect, and practice self-care, because we're in this for the long haul. Silence that little voice that tells you, oh, I've got to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30 or 40, or I've got to have a $10 million business by whenever. Who cares? You're going to get there, but get there alive. And it's when you get there, you're able to enjoy it a lot more.
I love this. And we're going to talk about the whole purposeful part. I was chatting with a client the other day and I was like, I know you can do it. That's not the question. Are you willing to kill yourself to do it is the main question. And they're like, oh, that's better. Yeah. Okay. Right. Because sometimes we're charging so fast that we don't even realize that we have other options because we're so good at our goals. Right. And we can keep going even when it's painful. Right. And I know you've had experience with this also. What were you going to say?
Well, here's what I learned, Jamie, is that as I became more successful on paper, what mattered the most to me was having an attitude of abundance consciousness. It wasn't necessarily tied to what our balance sheet was saying. It was tied to my attitude. I had gone out and I experienced, having a bunch of cars and flashy friends and traveling to a bunch of places and stuff. And then I realized, this stuff isn't really worth it. What really is worth it is, do I feel abundant on the inside that, God has blessed me with never having gone hungry my entire life. And when I look at, some of the wonderful people around me and some of the clients that we serve that we are in alignment with, and I'm not battling for a dollar or I'm working with folks who I respect from a values perspective and from a business perspective. That's when my abundance consciousness is really there for me to just remind me, you're doing well, everything's okay. And I've got joy in my heart in a way where in my 20s, I was push in a world of resistance. And now in my late 30s, it's more like a flow state where you're attracting the kinds of people and relationships and opportunities that you know that the abundance is not going to go away so long as you invest in keeping a great mindset. Now, this is all to say, Jaime, it didn't happen overnight. And an awakening happened for me back in 2012 when I had a near-death accident. My body was recovered from a drowning accident in a lake in East Texas. And I went through 2 years of an evaluation process of really trying to figure out, what is it that I can do to live more purposefully? What is it that I can do to show up more purposefully in life, in my marriage, in business, and so on? And it was like putting a microscope up to my face and saying, hey, James, are you doing this right or are you doing that wrong? Let's make some yes or no decisions right now. And it took that incident or accident, if you will, to shake me, to wake me up, to have that, abracadabra aha moment to begin to get it right. And that's really when I went into the executive coaching and coaching. But without that accident, I would still probably be pushing hard and maybe my business would be a little bit larger, but I certainly wouldn't have that abundance consciousness mindset.
And relaxation and flow, like you were talking about too. And I think that's what's, unfortunately, we don't all, or I should say fortunately, we all don't want to have a near-death experience to have a catalyst moment like what you did. But that's what sort of changes absolutely everything. I was reading a book the other day and it was saying that life is like going on a ship knowing it will sink. I'm like, ooh, ouch, right? So we're all going to die eventually, but because we can sort of push it so far away, it doesn't mean that we have to change who we are now. But you had a very up close and personal experience in order to change things that you had now. Did you change it automatically all at once or like within the next few months? Or was it an ebb and flow and like, ooh, I'm back to my old patterns and habits and stuff like that?
Something magical or ineffable kind of happened to me where I had the transition experience and I came back and I began talking differently. Wow. I began listening to people differently. I began telling people I love you a lot more. And I realized how short and how fragile life can actually be. Instead of having this arrogance of invincibility that I once had, that I can push, force, plow, yank, grab, do all those things, I came back and it was all of a sudden, but it was also gradual. It was graceful, and my family knew it and they saw it around me. And there was a gravity that I carried with me where my words, I really started speaking and measuring my words differently, knowing that I'm talking to a soul as I'm talking to someone, and that person is someone who I'm engaging with, and that my words do matter. My words do matter. The quality of the connection that I'm having with this person does matter. And it's just something that I still have a hard time explaining, Jaime. But when someone does say, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, I'll say, oh no, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And while I wouldn't wish a near-death accident upon anybody, it's something that I don't regret. I'm glad it happened. And it really opened my eyes to living a new way.
Gave me goosebumps. I could feel the level of presence that shifted from one to another. Not that anybody wants to go through that, because that's not, do you have any tips for us who have not gone through that on how to sort of push, I don't even want to say push, pull that experience towards us so that way we can actually feel the gravity of what that is?
Mm-hmm. I would say don't be afraid to spend time alone. Don't be afraid to spend time alone. There's so much noise around us, Jaime, with social media, with the news, with family. People are out there raising kids and running businesses, and kids are being schooled at home right now. And the world has changed in so many ways. But don't be afraid to go on a walk alone, to sit on a bench by the lake alone, and to go into meditation and ask yourself, why am I really here? What's the highest and best value that I can bring to this planet before my day comes? Spend some time reflecting upon that. Reflect upon your death. Reflect upon those things and don't be afraid of it. And the answer will come to you. It might not come to you come to you immediately, but when you spend the time to quiet the noise and distractions and go within, so many answers will come to you, not only on a subconscious level, but they'll come to you from a creative perspective. They'll give you ideas about how to better run your business, how to show up differently in relationships, how to get to some places more quickly and with less resistance than you thought.
I love all of it. We don't contemplate anymore. Like back in the day when it was all about like philosophy and contemplation and we didn't have social media, it was more about actually being internal and doing the deep work than it is, on our cell phones addicted the whole entire time, right? So when you mean alone, You're not like listening to a podcast alone on a bench. It's like literally not having any input so you can actually get some output.
That's right. Well, listening to a podcast or looking at the news or looking at what's it called, the reality TV, it just strikes comparanoia in our minds. We look at other people in their lives and what they're doing, and sometimes on social media or on reality TV, we think, oh, that person has it so easy, or they have it so great, or oh my gosh, that's chaos. But that energy also sticks to us. And when we can laser focus on our own family, our own community, our own business affairs, that's when the magic happens. The magic happens when we get out of other people's stuff. My partner and I, we recently did a social media and a news fast. And we went a whole week without watching any news, without going online and pulling up stuff and figuring out anything about politics or having any judgments around that. We just checked in with ourselves and did our daily work. And, we spent a little bit more time exercising. We noticed that we had a lot more time in the day because we weren't spending that time surfing for anything on the TV or responding or reacting to things that we heard in the news. And there was an energetic increase in our lives, while also there was a vibrational increase and just in terms of how we were feeling from a mind, body, spirit perspective. And not only after that first week, Jaime, did we feel great, we decided to do it another week because it felt so darn good. So I would encourage folks to get out of that stuff. Get out of that stuff that's clinging to you, that can be holding you back. And you can even have family that's negative or pessimistic or doesn't believe in you. Oh, hey, your dream's never going to come true, or stop talking to us about doing X, Y, or Z. Some of us have families like that, and I had some family like that. I've just got to make up my mind. I've got to take space for me and my dream. And if I don't, I could be 80 or 90 years old saying, I regret this, I regret that. I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. When I go out of here next time, Jaime, I don't want any tread left on my tires, and I don't want any music left in my song.
I love this. Okay, so when it comes to the restlessness, though, right? So being alone is one thing. And because I know for me, I'm constantly on the move and sort of trained myself that way for a long period of time, that sitting still when I'm not meditating I can do. When I'm sitting still and not doing something like meditating, I get restless. You seem like you have such a presence that doesn't seem to get restless, but do you get restless?
Get restless?
Okay, good. Tell me more.
I'll even do a meditation with my noise canceling headphones on, pulling weeds in the yard. I mean, I get restless. I like to move my body. I like to stay on the go. And that's the thing. Some of us are type A personalities who like to achieve, who like to get the brain chemicals going from crossing off things on our list. But also it's important to slow down and get away from that sometimes, and to just sit quietly and to just say, okay, I'm not going to do anything. And I look back on my schedule sometimes because I like to work, 6 days a week. So Saturday is kind of a work day for me, and then Sunday is just the rest day. Just do nothing on Sunday. And then I reflected and I realized I have a hard time not doing anything on Sunday. Just like, I'm like trying to call this person, or trying to do this, or texting this person, or checking in with this or that. But those off days are there for a reason. And it's important to take a step back, because as you're recharging. And I'll say, for my book, Jaime, when the idea came into my head to write the book, The Purposeful Millionaire, I was actually in Hawaii on a hike through a jungle. And I was just in a total relaxation state. I had, gone to a waterfall and I'd sat on a rock and I'd just done nothing. And I was like, oh yeah, James, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And so if I had been in that frantic state of, I got to do this, I got to do that, maybe that idea might not have come to me. Or maybe the actual action, the execution of writing the book would have been a lot harder, because I would not have been in a state of flow, just in a state of performance and ego driven. I've got to write a book because I want to be somebody, not because I want to write a book because I want to share my voice or to help other people. There's a difference there.
We have a tendency to downplay downtime, even though, like you said, that can be where our most creative ideas can actually come from. How do we do this for employees, though? So when we talk about flow as an entrepreneur, it's like easy because we're masters of our schedules and blah, blah, blah. And employees have it a little bit different. So especially when it comes swinging back to the culture topic that we were talking about before, how can we empower our employees to sort of have these conversations and really pay attention to what works for them, even if it doesn't totally align with what exactly you want?
Mm-hmm. There's an opportunity and an opening for people to do what works for them without comparing themselves to anyone else. One of the things that we've done in our company is that every Friday we get together and we kind of have our Super Soul Friday session where I'll talk and share some thoughts about the week from a spiritual, non-religious, and an inclusive perspective. We have a conversation about how are you doing? Are you sticking to your goals? How's your body feeling? Are you checking in with your body? We'll do that sometimes because the body doesn't lie. If you're going through a lot of stress and you're not managing your stress well and you're not taking care of yourself or you're not breathing or doing your meditations, the body's going to manifest that stress somehow, whether it's a headache, maybe a migraine, maybe a kink in the back, or maybe some digestion issues. If you don't take care of that stuff long term, it's going to turn into something a lot more serious. So in spite of how busy we are, we do take the time to carve it out, to talk about kind of that taboo topic of consciousness and or spirituality. But you can do it in such a way in the workplace where it's part of the culture. It's part of the culture to let people know, hey, I'm trying this week. We actually had one person on our team. She's lost 10 pounds over the course of 2 weeks. And that's because she had an accountability partner who she met in our Friday consciousness sessions and said, hey, I've been at home a lot. I've got the kids. I'm not moving as much as I need to. She's lost some weight because of just us having the conversation and having that opening for her. And she found a buddy to partner with respect to accountability.
All these taboo subjects, right? I remember back in the day, like you weren't allowed to talk about money at all either. You weren't allowed to talk about this. You definitely don't talk about death, right? You can talk about birth, but you can't talk about death. And it's great that we can sort of open up the conversation because, we're all going to have these issues and we just sort of keep them internally. Mm-hmm. But the connection that you can have, even with your employees, can be great. Where is the line, though? So like boundaries versus, right? So especially when it comes to employees, a lot of business owners that I see when they start moving forward and start growing, they're like friends with their employees. Mm-hmm. And boundaries can kind of skew. So do you have any thoughts on boundaries?
I think it's important to write it down that you're a radically inclusive workplace. If you want to be successful, you've got to include everybody. You've got to include all faiths. You've got to include all sexual orientations, backgrounds, race, gender, everything. You've got to be in a totally inclusive workplace. And when you write it down and share with people what you stand for and the kind of workplace that you want to create, where your ideas are important, where your sharing is important, then that's part of your culture right there. It's written down. You act it out every single day. You're totally inclusive. And people will have these kinds of conversations, not in a, what I'm doing over here or what my belief system is better than yours, but hey, have you thought about something this way? Or part of my culture informs me about X, Y, or Z. Have you thought about that? And then people are more relaxed at work and they're able to enter into a better flow state when that relaxation occurs or when they feel like they're not being judged. So with respect to boundaries, no, we don't talk about, specific religious stuff or text or dogma. We talk about consciousness. We talk about consciousness. And we talk about the ideas of unity and togetherness and us being one human family. So there's a difference there. That's the line, Jaime.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, because when we talk about hard conversation, it seems like you're a person that might be not eager for hard conversations, but really good with navigating what hard conversations are, both in the workplace, but also personally is what I'm just meeting you, but it seems like you would be really good at that. And so when it comes to some of the stuff where people will sort of lean towards a way, how does a workplace handle some of that stuff, whether it be, like you were saying, non-inclusivity, where you don't have someone on your team that actually is open and curious to some of the stuff and they might be pushing back? How do you handle something like that?
You never force anyone and you never require anybody to attend this kind of thing. It's up to you. If you feel like you're getting value out of it, you can attend. If you feel like it's not your thing, don't attend. But we don't have any required attendance policies with respect to anything that we're doing with these conversations. All we ask is that if you come, you be open to sharing. And that's all. So we've never really had a boundary issue or an issue with someone who did not want to attend, which I think is perfectly fine, who found that it was kind of clubby or they were being excluded.
Okay, that makes sense. It almost sounds like a book club that you can choose to be in, otherwise not. I thought it was a full system-wide. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, go you. This is amazing. Yes, but the ability to opt out makes this a lot easier to go down that path. But it's awesome that you have that caring about the humanness in them on a Friday. To be able to actually highlight that is, I think, really important.
Mm-hmm. When you see your team, when you treat them as human beings, it's incredible what happens. It's incredible. Even as the company grows, when it's more than just, hey, Jamie, how's it going? Hi, I'm fine. When it's more than that, when I know, your children's name, when I know some of the things that are going on in your life, or when I know that you've got a virtual shoulder to cry on and vice versa, that's when you create a really powerful, energetic family type atmosphere where somebody might be offered a job somewhere else for a little bit more money, but they're most likely going to stick with you because of the fact that you care.
That's what every business owner wants too. They're like, I can't pay you as much as the big corporation yet, but I'm going to, try and give you what you need as a human. I highlight that that's super important to be able to sort of win people, no matter what it is, for the culture side of things. And I think, unfortunately, because business owners are so busy and they're in hustle mode, like we were just talking about, it's easy to sort of say, oh, I'll get to that. Oh, eventually, right? And then sort of put it as priority number 4 that we never really get to.
Well, train your managers to be lieutenants with respect to this philosophy of caring. Not just, from an operational perspective and a financial perspective of get your work done, let's make some money here, but train your managers to be lieutenants of that consciousness that you brought into the workplace to create your culture. And when we're hiring managers, we can ask questions. We can kind of get a good feel. We can do some personality testing to see, is this person a good fit for this organization? And sharing my philosophy about how to treat people from the top down.
What are some of the either resources or personality tests, or give me some more so that way people can actually do this stuff?
So my favorite is 16personalities.com, 16personalities.com. That's by far my favorite. If people were to do that in the workplace more often, we'd see, such less, turnover, people talking about, oh, your personality type's this type, my personality type's this type. No wonder we can't communicate and hear each other when we're talking, or no wonder we're not working as well together. And so as a coach, I use 16 personalities as a tool to inform people about self-awareness. And, well, the test doesn't lie. Here's the results. And you mentioned over here that you're having a challenge with that department or that leader. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about communication style. And it's a really fun test, maybe 20 minutes long or so, but you'll learn something every single time you take it. And you'll learn something every single time someone shares the results with you.
Definitely. I love it. I'm always joking. I'm an INTJ. What are you? So it's funny because when what you're saying is more knowledge about how you work as a human can help you with the communication skills, especially knowing what theirs is also. But when it comes to a manager, if they don't have that skill set, or maybe they're a newer kind of manager, how do we get them to learn that skill set? Do you have any resources on some of that?
Right. I want to go back for just a second. You're an INTJ.
Yeah.
And see, that's an example to our audience out there. I read you totally wrong. I thought that you would totally be an extrovert instead of an introvert.
I go back and forth. You're really good. I'm an ambivert, technically.
I'm an ambivert. So I'm kind of in between the two, which means that I need time to recharge on, the weekend, or if there's like an after work event, sometimes I might not want to go and hang out with other folks. And for a solid introvert, sometimes they just want to get their work done. And so this opens up a conversation about how you and I might be able to work better together, knowing that you're an ambivert or maybe a little bit more of an introvert than I am, and how we recharge and how we really show up in the workplace. And I forgot your second question, by the way.
I love it. So when it comes to managers, though, and if their skill set is sort of the newer manager side, especially because a lot of business owners I'm being a little judgy when it comes to this. I'm not judgy. They're not great managers, right? Or they haven't learned that skill set either. So they're trying to hire somebody that like is better than them, but maybe newer potentially also. Do you have any training? I'm always recommending like the 1-minute manager, but that's like so old school. Do you have any training or resources or blogs or podcasts or anything about sort of that to help them with the culture side of things?
No specific trainings, but it's important for the owner to really understand their weakness. Weaknesses and opportunities for growth. And so I recommend that every single owner, every single person who's growing their business, do a SWOT on themselves. And if you have a business partner, also do a SWOT, where you're looking at the strengths that you have, the weaknesses and the opportunities and threats, because a lot of us have blinders on. We're ideas people, but we're also not managers. And for people who can bring ideas to fruition, a lot of them don't like to sit in meetings. A lot of them don't like to manage. A lot of them are really bad at administrative tasks and getting things like taxes filed and, logging into QuickBooks and doing that kind of thing. So know your weaknesses and know your opportunities for growth, but also understand what is it that threatens the business with respect to where you're capable and where you're not capable, and hire someone who can fill those gaps. Hire someone who can fill those gaps, but who can also have that human side to him or her as well.
I really appreciate that. I have my clients rate all the roles that they're in. So like grade themselves. And it's like, oh, I'm really great at this. And then I'm doing 12 other roles that I would call an F. Your business is going to not be doing great well in those. If you know what I mean? Like it's not rocket science, but it's hard to self-assess, right? Because we're just sort of stuck in it and doing what we need to do. How did you find out what your strengths versus your weaknesses were? Because it's evolving too, right? It's not like you can get everything perfect the first time out.
It's constantly evolving. And as a coach, I have a coach. It's important that people invest in awareness and being reminded of what their greatness can actually be. Sometimes we think, well, I've gotten this far on my own grit. Well, what got you here is not what's going to keep you here. And what's going to get you to the next level is certainly not what got you here. So be able to open your mind to investing in time and resources of someone who is perhaps farther along than you. Don't get a coach who hasn't been successful. I see people all the time who will hire a career coach, and I'm asking them, well, what has your coach done with his or her career? Oh, my coach has this certification, da-da-da-da. No, ask your coach, what the heck have you done with your business or your career? And then you can help me. What have you done with your life and your consciousness? Are you proud of how you're showing up? Some coaches might have just made a lot of money, but they might have horrible marriages. So it's tough to find a great fit coach who's well-rounded on the personal and the professional side, but they're out there. Do your homework and know that this is an investment in you and a tool to help you to achieve your greatness.
I think that's really important, especially because social media nowadays, even with coaches just in general, they're like, we are amazing. And they showed the perfect everything. And you're like, they must be perfect. Not always.
Well, I'll tell you something, Jamie. Uh-huh. I have a friend who's a business owner. He hired a coach. She charges him every single month. They're in a contract. And he realized after he hired the coach that she has 50 other clients, 50 other clients that she meets with on a monthly basis. And so she had this wonderful marketing campaign and got all these clients and meets with them for 1 hour, and they get charged, and she has a program and all that stuff. But there's no value in the program because, number one, she's so busy. Number two, there's no way that she's going to be able to really care as much as she should if she's got that much business and she's trying to juggle that much, because there's not really the opportunity there to really get to know you. So it's been a very regimented coaching program. And he and a couple of other folks are looking forward to getting out of it.
How could she even remember all their names? I mean, I can remember.
Thank goodness for Outlook and some of these programs we have. It's like pop into a meeting, pop out of a meeting, pop. No, but some people, some people do it. You know, that's her definition of success.
Yeah.
It's a quantity and financial game, not a quality game.
Well, and like you said, you have to align values, and it's hard to just sort of know what someone's values are based on their website. And I mean, if they have their core values, please have your core values and have them be accurate, of course, right? Mm-hmm. Integrity, for sure.
Her website looks amazing.
I bet, right? And it's, again, what would you give him for advice for fleshing that out when he had the sales call with her then?
Ooh, ask tough questions. Tell me about your career. What's the thing that you're most proud of in your career? Tell me about a day when you didn't show up the way that you were supposed to. What are some of the challenges that you've overcome? How quickly did you rise in the ranks? And as you did so, how are you taking care of yourself? Talk to me about your connection with your mind, your body, and your spirit. How's your family life? Have you been divorced? Did you learn anything from the divorce? Are you dating anyone now? I mean, some of these questions it's a coaching environment. So the rules for HR are different from coaching.
Definitely.
And the rules for receiving psychological, psychiatric care are different for coaching. Coaching is a powerful accountability-based relationship where we work so hard on our professional lives, it blurs right into the personal. Personal blurs right into the professional. So with a great coach, you're going to be talking about both, and you've got to be comfortable. And if that person's not willing to be comfortable and to let their hair down a little bit and to share some specific examples about where they've succeeded, where they've not succeeded, where they failed, where they've won, where they have learned huge lessons, then that coach is not for you.
I feel like I know everything about all of my clients on all aspects, which is a gift. I'm very grateful. But how many people have actually asked you those questions when they've hired you? I was just thinking, I was like, those are amazing questions. Even on my sales calls, a lot of people don't turn they ask me questions about me, but not like that as far as questions. So how often do people ask you that stuff?
I wish they'd ask me more because
Right?
I'd be willing to share.
Yes.
I'd be willing to share. But there's a lot of information in my book about me as well, about some of the challenges that I've overcome. So people will read the book, or I'll get a referral, and they'll know a lot about James Nowlin and who I am online. But there's also the guy who lives in Austin, Texas, who has a marriage, who has a business, who has these other things going on, and responsibilities that people don't know about. I'm not a closed book. I'm willing to share things that I've learned in my life and my business affairs to help people to not struggle as much as I have. Jaime, one of the reasons why I had my accident, I'm convinced, is because I was exhausted. I was exhausted from work. I was not in a great psychological place back in 2012. A buddy of mine and we had gone out kayaking in the middle of a lake. We left our life jackets behind. Freak storm came out of nowhere. I was not mentally, psychologically, or physically strong at that point. I was worn out from work. And so thank goodness I had the lesson. I received the lesson and made some changes in my life. And anecdotally, I share with other folks, this was the challenge. This was my thought process. This was the resolution. And, this is the outcome. And so you've got to have somebody who's willing to be vulnerable with you, because your success is their success and vice versa.
I love this conversation. All right, I know we have to start wrapping up, but at least you live in Austin, so sometime I will be able to hang out with you again.
We will.
Hopefully, with COVID. So what is one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
Go into the silence. Go into the silence. We're living in a really noisy time right now, Jaime. Even though many of us are at home or working from home and doing less with travel and other things, there's a lot of noise and there are a lot of distractions out there. We have the opportunity to really commit to doing some housekeeping internally on ourselves, spending some time purifying our thoughts and our minds about who we are, who we came here to be, and where we're going. And I think that if people spent more time doing that, not only would this experience of quarantine be more pleasant, but also you'd realize, wow, I'm on the path to creating something really incredible right now. And it might be tough. Some days might be tough, but there's resilience and there's a power there that's going to take me to where I want to be. Let me get rid of the paranoia. Let me take a step back away from social media. Let me stop listening to so-and-so's opinion about X, Y, and Z. And let me go within so that I can get my stuff right. And if I can get my stuff right during one of the most challenging damn periods that I've ever seen in my life, I don't know about you, but 2020 has been a beast, one of the most challenging periods of our lives, then I can get through anything. I can get through anything.
I adore that. It's showing us the capacity, if we can just look and see, and the resilience that the human mind actually has, especially for you being able to say that from a place of having a near-death experience and to go, yeah, I saw that, and this is what's most important. So thank you so much for coming on today. Where can we find the book, more about you, and all that?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. You can find my book on jamesonamazon.com. You can find out more about me at jamesnowlin.com. That's JamesNowlin. And then you can find out more about my consulting firm, Excel Global Partners, at excelglobalpartners.com.
I just appreciate you and your presence and grace here. I really, really love that Jen connected us, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Right back at you, Jamie. Thank you.
If you enjoy this show, I would really appreciate your wonderful words of feedback. Go leave me a review. I would love a rating, whatever you can do in the time that you've got. I would so appreciate it.